you want to be healthy. And that's obvious. And we all say we want to be healthy. And the truth is that I want it so much that I'm willing to spend money on it. So here in Canada, where it isn't necessary to spend money on it, I do private, right? My daughter has never waited for a medication, a blood test, or anything. I pay for her to go. And myself as well. And that's because without physical health, you actually don't have anything, right? There's no fun. There's no joy in your life. There's no peace. You don't have anything. And if you stop and think about what we all do when we get sick, like really sick, the kind of sick that needs medication, we pay for the medication. So I got a comment, and I wanted to share that comment with you because the price of healthcare is something that we argue about, that the prices go up all the time. We don't here in Canada, the government helps, but then there's negatives that come with that. In the US, you guys a lot of it's by insurance, but there's negatives with that. We have insurance too. But we don't really understand how important it is to have some kind of healthcare plan until we actually need it. Okay. So the comment starts with, my wife had breast cancer, over $500,000 in medical costs for treatment, but with insurance it costs just about $7,000, which is still rough for them to cover. She survived, but just barely. It was a stage 3 cancer, and it was Herceptin that turned the tide. She had put on a lot of weight and lost 50 pounds before the breast cancer via exercise and cutting carbs by following Body for Life. I joined her and lost 50 pounds as well, and we spent 6 out of 7 days at the gym. So the first thing that I want to point out in this comment is that Herceptin it's a targeted cancer treatment. It's not chemo. So, okay, it's a bunch of medication coming into my body to try to help me to do something. Let's just start there. And then they talked about, before that happened, they had done Body for Life. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but I had to look it up as I hadn't heard of it. And basically, Body for Life is an exercise program / diet program where you eat low fat, low calorie, high exercise. They were doing 6 out of 7 days a week, which is, when I looked it up, that's what the program suggests. You get to have a cheat day on weekends, but the rest of the week you eat 6 small meals a day with heavy restrictions on fat and high carb foods. So they're restricting high carb foods, which I like that part. However, if I understood it well, whole grains were not a problem. It was more like white rice and obviously junk food. So there was a desire for you to stay away from junk food. So I'm just looking at that, and it sounds like a typical diet, but they talked a little bit about carbohydrates. So I do like that part, that they spoke a bit about the carbohydrate situation. So after Body for Life, both went back to regular eating. Donuts were not common, but we both loved them when we got them. We put on 50 pounds in 3 months. We didn't understand what was happening. I was then diagnosed with prediabetes, put on metformin. I also had sleep apnea, got a machine. I was also sent to the kidney clinic and diagnosed with chronic kidney disease at 54% kidney function. Gradually, my blood sugar levels increased. I had to go on insulin and was on Novolog and Lantus for around 2 years. Gradually, I went off of some of the insulin and went on Tresiba. My metformin was increased to 2,000 milligrams. Then my diabetic doctor told me I should try Ozempic for weight loss and blood glucose control. I went on it and did start to see weight loss. I was at a weight of 354. Prior to that, this person was at 140 pounds until the age of 40. Okay, Wellness Warrior. The thing that I want you to pay attention to, right, is that they didn't understand what was happening. And I could understand that because if I do this Body for Life program and they tell me that I'm still supposed to be able to have my cheat day, and so, I can eat off plan once in a while. And then when I get to goal weight, what is Body for Life telling me? Okay. So what's common to all weight loss diets is the idea that the diet is temporary, right? But this is called Body for Life. So now the question mark in my mind was, are they telling them in this program to do this forever? Well, clearly not, because they went off, right? So even in this program that's called For Life, what are they actually suggesting? It's cycling in and out of it, right? Now, what does that do? It allows the diet that you're doing to be restrictive. And so I'm not eating fats. I'm not eating carbs. What's the energy source for my body? I'm pushing myself to exercise despite, well, I shouldn't say I'm not eating fats and carbs because truthfully you are. It's impossible to get fats out if you're having any meat. So, but I'm taking it down a lot. I'm doing lean and I'm taking my carbs down now, not as much as you or I do, but at the same time, it's still enough that I'm probably going to be hungry and I'm exercising like a crazy person, which is the other thing that these diets do. They allow us to put so much exercise into our day, but can I sustain being at the gym 6 days a week? Yes, if I love it. So if you're the kind of person that just loves being at the gym, maybe you have a lot of friends there, you just like working out every day, and you have the time to be there every day, then yes, you can do that. And these diets also allow us to eat the foods that we love sporadically, but then they put us on these foods that we hate most of the time. Again, because it's temporary. Anybody can do this for 6 months, right? And they work because you fight your body down, and they lost 50 pounds. So you fight your body down. And can I just say 50 pounds is good? A lot of people lose a pound or two per month. So to get 50 pounds down, you're talking 22 years usually. So the fact that they did this program and lost, well, they didn't say how long it took. Okay, they didn't say how long it took. These diets keep us chasing Wellness Warrior, right? Because that garbage that I love, that's making my dopamine and serotonin and all my chemicals in my brain go crazy, are still in my diet. They're still in my face. And you're following instructions, right? So you keep chasing and you believe that it's okay because junk food is okay, right? Once in a while, as a treat, right? You're allowed to have cheat days and all these stories that we're told. And then as soon as you go back to eating normally, what happened to them? Within 3 months, they've regained 50 pounds. Now, what is unfortunate that we're not really taught is that when we pack weight on, we either create new fat cells or our existing fat cells get bigger. The interesting thing is that, like, once we've created a fat cell, and then once that fat cell gets bigger, it can now kind of shrink and open up. So like it can let go of itself and shrink back down to a small size, but it can refill itself easier because it's already there. And so like once we've been heavy, it's easier for us to be heavy again. And we've all lived this. You gain weight, you work out and you diet and do the things, you lose weight. And then as soon as you relax a little bit, you put it back on. So the author was diagnosed with prediabetes, had to be put on metformin and then other medications, sleep apnea machine, chronic kidney disease. So what I want to say about the medications is that Novolog is a fast-acting insulin. Lantus is a slow-acting insulin. And I'm not sure if this is a misunderstanding or if it's actually what the person was told, but just by what they wrote, they were told that they were coming off of insulin and onto Tresiba. But Tresiba is a long-acting insulin. So I don't know if that was a misunderstanding on their part or if they were misled. But all they did was change from one insulin medication to a different insulin medication, which came along with an increase in metformin, which of course helps us to have better access and for the insulin to work better, we'll say, right? Because it's messing with the way sugar is processed in the body. And so whatever, at the end of the day, more metformin and a different insulin. So if that person was told that they were coming off insulin, that's a frustration to me because that's not what happened. Now, then they switched to Ozempic, which is a different medication. Now, not really sure if they were still taking the insulin and the other things, so that might have been happening, but they switched to Ozempic because that wasn't clear. Well, switch might mean that they changed. So let's assume they're no longer taking the insulin. They switched to Ozempic, and I've already made a video about my opinion of Ozempic, so I'm not really going to go into that right now, but the fact is they're on a medication now that's truly expensive and that they will need to be on forever, right? So by this time, the person gets down to 354 pounds, if I'm reading that well, or they were at 354. So I'm not 100% sure, but let's just continue with the story. So I got to the point where I figured I would never be thin again and would be overweight for the rest of my life. My wife, who felt the same way, okay, we bought ramps to get us in and out of the house. We installed a walk-in shower. I had to help her to get in and out of the shower. And we started planning for making our home handicap accessible. I had plans for a special ramp in the back door from the backyard. Now, Herceptin knocked out the cancer in my wife, but she still was unable to function well from day to day. She was over 370 pounds. Things were bad. Then my doctor told me that I could find an insurance plan to cover Ozempic and Jardiance for the rest of my life. The cost was thousands of dollars, and I just didn't have the money. I was already broke paying for all the health care. So I came home dejected, and all I had was one video by Sarah Hallberg that talked about reversing diabetes on a TED Talk. I told my wife that all we had to do was go on low carb diet because I could no longer afford the medication. So, first of all, love Sarah Hallberg. It's so sad that she's no longer with us. But this person found Sarah's video and decided that's the answer. Because the solution proposed by the doctor was to find an insurance company so you could keep taking the medication. Right? And just find a way to pay for it. That was the doctor's solution. Find a way to pay for your medication because you need these drugs forever. I want to pause here because they try to convince us that it's impossible to do keto forever. And we're crazy to do carnivore for even 4 months, 5 months. We are going to give ourselves a heart attack. I just want to point out that they have no problem telling us that whatever medication that they've given us, which 100% impacts our health, we should be taking forever. Right? You're going to take this until you're no longer walking the planet. I just want to point that out because I find that insulting, because what they're really saying is that I don't care enough about myself to figure out how to eat properly. So just take this medication and get out of my office. Now, both he and his wife, after losing 50 pounds with Body for Life, were back to being over 350 pounds. So again, it's not clear how much they were weighing before the medical issues hit. He does mention at one point, I'm not sure if I got there yet, that he was 140 pounds at age 40. So it's not clear in this scenario how old they are now when they're both over 350. But I want to point out that Body for Life was not actually a program that they were able to follow for life, because to be that low in fat and keep my carbs relatively low, but I'm still chasing and I'm still allowing carbohydrates into my fun food carbohydrates into my life once a week. How is this all going to work? How am I going to stay on track and be the healthiest version of myself that I can be with all these contradictions? And they weren't able to do it. Now we had already cut our calories down to 1,800 and our carbs down to 150 through our work with our dietitians. So they have dietitians. So for us, cutting down to 70 carbs was relatively easy. My wife had started to lose weight and didn't realize it. And once we started cutting our carbs down to 70 a day, we were surprised when we found that she had lost 50 pounds. I lost 50 pounds on Ozempic. So I was already down to 304. So we just got our answer. And she was down to 324. Okay. So they were working with dietitians. I like the fact that the dietitians were even talking about carbs, right? That makes me really happy. They weren't focused on the carbs from what I can see, because they were still having them at a relatively high amount, right? Because they were at 150, which is it's more than low carb, right? I believe low carb is 125. So it's even more than low carb. So the dietitians weren't necessarily aiming them at a low enough number, but it was low enough that they hadn't even noticed that his wife had started to lose weight, which is terrific. What I like about this is that if I'm doing close enough to low carb, apparently we can easily get down to 70. So when I started my keto road, I was coming from 350 to 375 per day, and I dropped down to 20, which was hard for me. That wasn't easy because 350 is a lot, right? But luckily for them, they were kind of close to doing a low carb, maybe even some places that might have been considered low carb. To get down to 70, they found it easy. So that was a happy scenario that I feel like when I read this, makes me feel like that was good for them. I'm reading it to you guys. I want to point this out too, because not everybody's too comfortable being on camera, but the fact that this person took the time to write this out in such detail to help other people understand what happened in their life, I felt like I needed to do a video and just give this data to more people, because not everybody wants to be on camera, right? And this is an amazing story. I want to keep going forward because what happens is it's pretty cool. So it was a small step for us to cut down to under 50 per day. Along with this, we were eating foods we loved: delicious meat, cheese, and wonderful salads. We loved our meals and we started to lose pounds. About 7 pounds per month with actually very little exercise. The fat just flew off. It was amazing. Eventually, she was down 130 pounds and I was down 103. All this last weight loss for me was after being on Ozempic. So this is no longer on Ozempic. So don't believe that you will gain weight if you go off Ozempic. The key is to stay on a low carb menu. Wow. The key is to stay on a low carb menu. So 50 grams a day is the official keto number when you look it up. Okay. That would definitely be considered over-the-counter strength if we're going to talk about Dr. Westman's classifications of keto. This is nowhere near the prescription strength of 20 total, right? And yet, they lost 7 pounds per month without exercise. And I want to just pause there because we are constantly being told it's your fault. You're lazy. You're not moving enough. If you would just get up, get off the couch. Why are you always in the house? The stories. We work, by the way. We work, and it's hard for a lot of people who work to make it to the gym. I mean, I don't know. I'm not even trying to get to the gym. I'm trying to get home to grab a toy of mine to get back outside. And over this past summer, I failed how many times? Didn't get home after work early enough to get out and do something, right? So it's not because I didn't want to. Sometimes work gets in the way, like actually gets in the way. Because trust me, the days that I was able to get out there, I was out there. I wanted to be out there. And sometimes I just rode my stuff to work because I just wanted to ride. And I realized I wasn't getting the time after work. Not everybody has that ability. Not everybody lives close enough to work that they can ride something to work without destroying themselves, right? And not being appropriate for their work environment. So I want you to think about the fact that they got healthy through eating alone is amazing. Gradually, I weaned off Ozempic and the other diabetic drugs. Today, I'm off 7 diabetic drugs and have lost 103 pounds. I no longer use Ozempic or anything else. My A1C is down to 6.2 from 12.6. And I expect it to get to 5.5. My wife has lost 130 pounds, and that was without Ozempic and just a low carb diet. She's feeling better than ever and no longer in a wheelchair and nearly off using a walker to get around. We both hope to lose 60 more pounds through our low carb menu and are sure we will do it. Again, can I just say, both of them had improvements in their health with food. Wellness warrior. Now he's no longer taking his medication, which is cool. And it sounds like no longer taking diabetic medication. Like they're both on a path to better health. She's on a path to walking on her own again, which I'm sure, again, if you would have asked her doctors, they would have told her, yeah, maybe at some point you want to invest in an electric wheelchair to get you around more easily when you're going to be in the mall and what. I'm sure that that's what they were telling them. It's like, oh yeah, we have insurance that will cover that. So, like maybe they would have had to pay a little bit more insurance to get that stuff covered. And now they're making plans to lose 60 more pounds. That's what they're making plans for. Not how do we keep making our house wheelchair accessible? How do we get ourselves in an even healthier state? You gotta love these kind of I love these things. I am off all diabetic medications. My wife was at one time told she would need to be on insulin, but because of what we learned, all of my experience, she didn't agree there. She didn't go there, sorry. Instead, she ate low carb, and over time, the weight went off. Her A1C went down from 9.2 to 5.5. Low carb, intermittent fasting, and removing sugar, wheat, pasta, beans, white rice was the key to success for us. We continue today eating under 50 grams of carbs per day, most often under 40. We focus on eating 75% of our calories in our first meals, 25 later in the day. We stop eating by 8 p.m., keeping our meals in a 10-hour window. I am now down to 1 blood pressure medication and I hope to get off that. And she is now down to a heart pill and a blood pressure pill. Honestly, it's amazing how some education and persistence can allow us to change our lives. They're doctors. We're medicating them. And through YouTube, Wellness Warriors, they did their own research and they're now on the road to health. I love it. I love it. And I think when I think about these things, one of the things that is interesting to me is that they're not even doing what most of the keto advocates would have said. Like the way that they're doing this Like they're 40 and under, which is not typically what the keto advocates say, right? They're eating 3 meals a day isn't an issue, but their window is 10 hours, which is still more than what most keto advocates would say. And they're improving their health. I definitely hear some old ideas, right? Like 75% of our calories in the early part of the day, and like that you're not supposed to eat late at night. I eat every single meal at somewhere around 8 o'clock. But I love it. I love it because they're doing this their way and they're adhering to the rules that they can, and it's working, right? And they have 60 pounds to go to be back to where they're comfortable. It's working. I love this because I think that the other thing that is a stumbling block for a lot of people, when I talk about how I live my keto life and I watch videos about other keto helpers talking about how they live their keto life, when I hear the doctors giving the best practice advice, which I try to myself give when we're talking about what should you do to start, I'm giving you the best practice advice that I follow and that I learned from the doctors. And that's what we're supposed to do, right? Because it's better for me to give you the best possible path, knowing that nobody's perfect. Knowing that you might make a mistake. So if I'm lax in what I tell you need to do, if I say, oh yeah, sure, have a cheat meal on the weekends, what's interesting to me, and first of all, true, full transparency, I never have cheat meals. That's just my truth. Okay. If I say to you, sure, fine, have a cheat meal on the weekend, but I know that most people make mistakes, then if I say have a cheat meal on the weekend, is it possible that you might have 3 and make it a cheat day? Is it possible that you might have 2 days of cheating? So I want to point out here today why I always talk about best practice. I always tell you what's the right thing to do. Not because I'm expecting you to be perfect, because I know I'm not perfect. Right? As I told you, I don't remember when it was in the last video, I think it was in the Pat Chat. I think we talked about it that we had a glass of wine. That's not on a healthy keto plan. I'm sorry, it's not. Right? I did it anyway. So I'm not perfect. Right? But I don't have cheat meals because, again, my ability to chase is really interesting. All right? I have no issues with alcohol. I've never had an issue with alcohol. I still see that it's not a great thing to have on a keto lifestyle. So that's why I keep it as way far once in a blue moon. But I don't cheat because whenever I've eaten anything that's not in my normal meal plan, I end up chasing. Now, that's me being realistic and honest with me. You're going to do whatever you're going to do, but best practice is what I talk about. Best practice is what doctors who care about you talk about. And the ones that give you leeway, Wellness Warrior, I'm asking you to question that, right? The ones that give you leeway, you should be asking, why are you giving me leeway, right? Tell me the right thing to do. If I want leeway, I'll take it because I'm an adult. And can I just point out to you, when your doctor, if any of you have ever smoked or done anything that your doctor felt you shouldn't be doing and said to you, hey, you need to stop that, you didn't walk out that day and stop. Right? You had to figure out your timing to do the better behavior. So a little bit of a side rant there, but it frustrates me when I see people giving permission to eat off plan, like if I don't already know that I can eat off plan. That's not what I need. What I need is what's the right thing to do? What's the healthiest thing for me to do? So I can strive toward that because I don't want to just get by. I want to thrive in life. And so if you tell me what the right things to do are, and I'm aiming at those right things, chances are I'm going to do maybe 90% of them, right? And if I can get 90% of them, okay, that's great. If I can get 100% of them, I'll try. But if I only get 95 or a 90 or even a 75 because I'm trying real hard, that encourages me to try real hard tomorrow, right? Especially when I start feeling better, which is what's happening with this couple. The more that they're eating properly, the more that they get to eat delicious food. Do you know that on the Body for Life, one of the main things they tell you to stay away from is bacon? I mean, it was so insulting to me when I read that. I was like, how dare you tell me to stay away from bacon? We are now better than we were 10 years ago, and much of our success is due to YouTube videos that informed us the need for a low-carb menu and intermittent fasting. Our doctors did help us on creating a food journal and learning about carbs and calories, but much of their direction made us sicker. We went against their advice. My nutrition advisor said I had to eat more than 120 carbs per day to be healthy. My diabetic advisor said I needed to be on Ozempic and Jardiance for the rest of my life. We are now free of all of these drugs and in the best health we've been in a decade. I mean, honestly, they went against their doctor's advice. Well, I've done that at least 2 or 3 times, so I can't fault them for that because I think honestly, it ends up being the better thing for you. But this is part of what I want to focus on. I'm sorry. The advice that we get. Right? They were doing what the doctors advised and getting sicker and sicker. And they saw it happening. Right? And what I can't understand is the doctors watch their patients take the medications, struggle to get the required exercise, struggle to eat the foods that, so those healthy foods, while they get sicker and sicker. So the doctor's watching you get sicker and sicker, right? And they see that you're getting sicker and sicker the same way that you see that you're getting sicker. This is not going in the right direction. And often we will then say that whatever condition the person is living, well, it's progressive and it's not curable, right? The obesity being called uncurable, diabetes being called uncurable, like all these scenarios that we live where they say, oh, but it's a progressive disease when it isn't. And then you have those other people who have an easier time working out and eating on plan that take a bit longer, but eventually do get sicker and sicker. And the doctors will look at them and say, well, you're old. And when we get old, of course, you're going to get sick, right? Every time ignoring the foods that we're eating, because like these people were actually able to do it. So you got a little further down the road, but then you're sick. You're sick. So it's either my fault because I'm not doing it well enough, or it's my age because, I had the audacity to get older. But it's never because I'm eating the wrong thing. Now, they don't talk about what happened when they went back. Did their doctors applaud them for changing their diet and get all of this corrected and start using what they learned with this couple for their other patients? See, the thing is, I doubt that. And I feel like the reason that doesn't happen is I feel like just like many people, like many professions, we are so arrogant in what we think we're learning and what we're progressing, we're new, right? That we ignore what was. Have we forgotten what it was like when our grandparents were older? Our grandparents, our great grandparents, that they had their wits about them, right? They were smart. They would teach us stuff, right? And that they were active into their later years, working on farms and like out there cleaning the snow and we were not always like this. The older generations did not have the huge rapid decline that we have. And I don't understand why doctors aren't a bit more on board with keto and carnivore, right? First of all, since those diets work and they see the results, but also because these stories aren't isolated, right? I could understand if it was just like, 100 people across the planet that use a keto or carnivore diet and got results, but that's not the story. There's millions, right? And I can even understand if, because it was only 100 people, it was seen as like, okay, some kind of luck or some kind of biological difference in those 100 people. But millions. More and more people who commit to keto and carnivore for 3 months see results, right? Just 3 months. If you commit every single day to one of those two diets, every single day, you actually eat it, they see results. And then for the people who see results, the longer they stay on the plan, the better results they see. I think this is a matter of not being able to admit that maybe what we've been advising to people is wrong, right? Having to admit that the medication and the surgeries don't actually work. And if that's the case, what are they going to do? Now, I feel like that's short-sighted though. And I'm not saying it's purposeful. I'm not saying that doctors are conniving and because honestly, so many doctors are overweight. I think they're just not letting themselves see it because it's like I would be pulling myself out of the matrix. And a lot of people are scared to pull themselves out of the matrix. So it's a blind spot, I think, that they have. And they can't see it because they've committed their entire lives to this noble profession, right? I'm going to heal people. But how do I heal people if I'm not giving them medications or doing surgeries or whatever? And this is where I feel that they're making a mistake, because there's always going to be people who get into accidents or who have other life things that they actually are allergic to something, or there's always going to be people that need some kind of you're also always going to have the people who have personalities that allow them to use food in the wrong way rather than use it the right way. So you're always going to have those people to work with. There's never going to be a story where doctors don't have work. So they don't need to commit this hard to this idea. But Wellness Warrior, you have not committed your life to this medical idea that food is irrelevant, right? You want to be healthy. You want to enjoy your life. So my suggestion to you, learn to enjoy the healthy food so that you are happy to eat them and get and get to live the rest of your life in a healthy body, right? And to get started on keto, you're going to need to, get those cravings under control, of course. And so there's a playlist that I've linked below, or that I will link below, and it's going to be at the end of this video, because that's the best plan, Wellness Warrior, for your life. Get those cravings under control so you can eat less than 20 grams of carbs per day, or apparently less than 40 will work for some people. Doesn't work for me. I need to be under 18, but for some people, apparently, right? So let's do this together, and I want to do it together. We can do it together if you go to wellnesssquad.org, right? And that over there, you're going to be able to join the community, and we can talk it through, and we can go over stuff, because I want there to be more stories like this. There should be thousands of these stories hitting my comment section. That's amazing. Next week, we're going to have another live stream. And if you want to get started on keto, you'll need to get those cravings under control. So there's a playlist. It's going to be linked below, and it's going to be tied to the end of this video. Pop in there, and I'm going to see you over there. So have a nice rest of your day, guys. Talk to you very soon.